Hindsight is 20/20. I'll preface my answer by saying I think it was unprecedented, the scale and the scope of what we saw them doing. And there had very clearly been intrusions before by a number of state actors, as I'm sure you're aware. In retrospect, it would be easy for me to say that I should have bought a sleeping bag and camped out in front of the DNC in late summer with the benefit of hindsight. I can tell you for certain that in the late summer, fall, I was very concerned about what I was seeing.
Can you elaborate more on what the DHS's connection with the DNC was, or consultation with the DNC was after you became aware of the hacking and they became aware of the hacking, as to what was offered them, what they accepted? Was there any level of cooperation at all?
To my disappointment, not to my knowledge, sir. And this is a question I asked repeatedly when I first learned of it. What are we doing? Are we in there? Are we helping them discover the vulnerabilities? Because this was fresh off the OPM experience. And there was a point at which DHS cybersecurity experts did get into OPM and actually help them discover the bad actors and patch some of the exfiltrations, or at least minimize some of the damage. And so I was anxious to know whether or not our folks were in there. And the response I got was FBI had spoken to them. They don't want our help. They have CrowdStrike, the cybersecurity firm. And that was the answer I got after I asked the question a number of times over the progression of time.
Now, that was, I assume, totally different from the reaction you got from OPM.
The OPM effort, we were actually in there on site helping them find the bad actors.
Do you know who it was at the DNC who made that decision, or who was making the resistance?
No.
No. Do you know if the FBI continued to try to help, try to assist?
I've read in the New York Times about those efforts sometime earlier this year.
I move to strike all references to the New York Times. I would just say, maybe it's editorializing my part, that really is, to me, an unusual response by the DNC. I mean, if you're talking about presidential election, you have an unprecedented amount of cyber hacking by a foreign power, an adversary from my point of view, and that they would not accept all the help that could possibly be given. Especially, I mean, it's not as if, not that you would be partisan or anyone else, but it's not even like it was a Republican administration trying to intrude into the DNC. This is a impartial governmental entity, FBI, DHS, and they didn't accept it. I just find it very hard to, to comprehend.
Well, my interest in helping them was definitely a nonpartisan interest.
I know that, yeah.
And I recall very clearly that I was not pleased that we were not in there helping them patch this vulnerability.